Hi guys and welcome back. Today is finally time to put some fish into the shallow tank. I'm really looking forward to it, but before I go to the fish shop, let's take a look at the progression of the shallow. So I planted the tank about 3 months ago and it hasn't really been cruising along. Some of you may have watched the other episodes of the shallow tank and know that I received plants that were just in a really bad state and I chose to plant them anyway. So I've really had to arm myself with a lot of patience. What normally would have taken about 1 month to 1.5 months has now taken about 3 months. It just reminds me that not every tank is going to take off the first month. Sometimes they do take more time, especially when you don't start off with plants that are in a healthy condition. In my case, the plants did take quite a lot of time to adapt and just to establish their root system before they were starting to push out new leaves, and this process was so slow. It took about 1.5 months for the plants to correctly root. And eventually, when they did get out of that phase, the growth was still very slow. So what I decided to do is just to keep the bio CO2 running on the tank, because at this point the plants really needed all the help that they could get. Light setting wise, I was running the light at 100% for about 9 hours. So 1 hour more than what I would do for all the other gallery tanks. I also added a small group of shrimp. So I started off with 3 sun-kissed shrimp. So these are low-grade orange shrimp. And the population completely exploded. There are now probably over 70 shrimp in this tank. But I'm not one to complain about having too many shrimp. Around about the end of the 3rd month, we can really see the difference in growth in the tank. Even the colors of the greens are more intense. The tank is doing so much better than what it was the first 1.5 months. There's still quite a few bold patches in the tank. We can see that the Taiwan lilies have grown quite well, but they still haven't completely filled out the back sections. And if I'm completely honest, that's probably going to take maybe another 2 months for them to be looking absolutely amazing. This was the main reason I didn't want to add fish the first month of having my tank. I really wanted the Taiwan lilies to grow out, to be nice and bushy, so then when I did put the fish inside, it wouldn't stress them out. They would have hiding spots and places to get away from the light. So now that the tank was doing pretty well, the hair grass also had really started to take off. What I did is I slightly lowered the CO2. So this is a very low level of CO2. In the long term, I do want this tank to be low tech. So gradually over the next months, I'm slowly going to lower the CO2 even more for it to be completely low tech. Fertilizer wise for this tank, all I was doing was fertilizing about once a week. So I was fertilizing 3 milliliters of general fertilizer, 3 milliliters of Excel, and that's about it. I did also initially at the very start dose about 3 milliliters of iron just to get it going. Okay, so I think I've yapped way too long on this whole explanation part, so I'm just going to spare you and get straight to the fish shop part. So I wasn't completely set on what I wanted to put in this tank, but when I saw these killifish, I was like, I need them, I need to get them. And then I wanted a classic, an ember tetra, and it kind of stayed with the orange theme of the shrimp to really bring out and contrast against the green plants I have in the tank. So I got a group of about 10 10 amber tetras, and then I got 5 killifish, so 3 males and 2 females. So what's really cool about the killifish that I got is they're not annual killifish. So for those who don't know what annual killifishes are, most killifishes only live for a couple of months. So these ones live up to 2 to 5 years. When I got home, it was time to acclimate the fish. So now that it's not snowing outside and the temperatures are now pretty warm, what I can do is I can just float the bags, which is just a lot easier for me to do rather than having to drip acclimate them because it's minus 15 outside. I floated the bags between 35 and 40 minutes to really make sure they weren't going to be in shock when I put them into the tank because they were looking kind of stressed. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these killifish. So these are Cape Lopez killifish. So specifically, they are more of the chocolate morph. So they have these irregular crimson spots with a lot of these orange and white borders on their tails. So like I said earlier, a lot of people think killifish only live for a few months, but these guys are non-annual species. They're from West Africa, and if they're well maintained, they can easily live anywhere between 2 to 5 years. I do think that 5 years is maybe pushing it a little bit, but who knows? So these guys do prefer cooler temperatures, so around 22°C, which is perfect because I don't heat any of the gallery tanks. They sit at room temperature, and I'm able to do this because I do have an eco home. So I have that luck, and the temperatures stay stable all year round. So obviously if you're keeping this kind of fish and the temperature does go down in winter, it's always better to have a heater. So these guys are still pretty stressed. We can see that they're not completely coloured up yet, but I can see that the females are slightly more chocolate than the males. They're also a lot smaller in size. Right guys, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week for a new video.